بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلي وسلم على المبعوث رحمة العالمين بعثه الله شاهدا ومبشرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا منيرا. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما واتقى. اللهم ارزقنا إخلاص القول والعمل. أحباء, if you guys want to chat, inshallah, if you guys can just exit. Barakallah fikum. We continue from Risalah al-Mustarshideen by Imam al-Harith al-Muhasibi rahmatullahi alayh, and he began speaking about an-niyyah. He began speaking about intention, and we spent about, I think, 3-4 classes or 2 classes, I can't remember exactly, speaking about niyyah. And today we will end this topic of an-niyyah that Imam al-Harith al-Muhasibi mentions within his Risalah. And he says that the Prophet ﷺ said, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إنما الأعمال بالنيات وإنما لكل امرئ ما نوى. And it is the beginning of the hadith itself, because the hadith itself is longer. And the hadith says, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. All actions are based off of a person's intention. And there's something that is muqaddar here. There's something that is hidden here. The translation is, all actions, for them to be accepted, they are based off of one's intention. If a person is pure when it comes to their intention, if a person is sincerely doing it for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, and that's what purity means here, then that person will be rewarded based off the intention that they had. And likewise, it is the opposite. A person who doesn't do an action for the sake of Allah Ta'ala, or there is khalal when it comes to their niyyah, then this person will not be rewarded. In fact, that person will be punished. وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَّا نَوَى. And every individual will have based off of what they intended. Subhanallah, by the way, there is nothing that destroys good deeds like being insincere and taking the huquq of other people. On Yawm al-Qiyamah, a person can come with many rewards. How are those rewards diminished? They're based off of an individual thinking that that person did so many good deeds, but that person was insincere to begin with. And a person can come with so many good deeds, but that person backbit another Muslim. That person gossiped. That person harmed another individual. And likewise, deeds will be taken away in that manner. So there's nothing that destroys good deeds like these two. Hadith from Prophet ﷺ continues, and I'll just complete the hadith. وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَّا نَوَى فَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. After the hijrah, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, فَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. Look at how the words of Allah, the Prophet ﷺ are. He says, the person who has migrated for the sake of Allah, then truly it is for the sake of Allah. It's as if the Prophet is saying that. Then his hijrah is for the sake of Allah. Meaning, if you did this, then you truly did this. If you did it truly for the sake of Allah and His Prophet, then that is exactly what your hijrah is all about. And you will be rewarded because of that. And the opposite, look at how the Prophet ﷺ changes his tone, or changes the words in slightly. He said, فَمَا كَانَتْ هِجْرَةُ لِدُنْيَا يُصِيبُهَا أَوْ امْرَأَةٍ يَنْكِحُهَا. A person who has traveled and a person who has migrated, but it wasn't for the sake of Allah and His Prophet. It was in fact even maybe a permissible action. A person's allowed to migrate for getting married, right? But look what the Prophet says, even if it's a permissible action, but it isn't for the sake of Allah Ta'ala and the Prophet. مَنْ كَانَ هِجْرَةُ لِدُنْيَا يُصِيبُهَا. A person came for business and migrated, or a person came to marry somebody. فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى مَا هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِ. Look at how the Prophet ﷺ mentions. He says, then his hijrah is whatever he wants it to do, as if the Prophet ﷺ is ridiculing it, right? And I mentioned this example before. It's as if the Prophet ﷺ is saying, what a father, for example, who really wants his child to become something really special. I want you to become a physician. And if you don't become a physician, do whatever the heck you want. It's as if the Prophet ﷺ is saying this. فَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَةُ لِدُنْيَا يُصِيبُهَا أَوْ امْرَأَةٍ يَنْكِحُهَا فَهِجْرَةُ إِلَى مَا هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِ. Then his hijrah is for whatever. Then his hijrah is for whatever he intended, right? Well, how did the Prophet ﷺ say it initially, right? When it comes to the person who did it for the sake of Allah, he said, فَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. Right? He repeats it to emphasize that truly this person will be rewarded for that action. And that's why it's so critical. Every single deed that we do it for the sake of Allah. We do it purely for the sake of Allah Ta'ala. And it's something that you have to continuously rectify. Don't just think that I have it or I don't have it. You do the action. In the midst of doing the action, you have to recall why you're doing it. And even after you do it, you recall why you did it. Right? It's something that you have to continuously work on. I end just with the quote of Yusuf bin Asbat. Look what he says. When it comes to niyyah, and these are ulama who speak, right? This isn't just a random individual like myself. He says, تَخْلِيصُ النِّيَّةِ مِنْ فَسَادِهَا أَشَدُّ عَلَى الْعَامِلِينَ مِنْ طُولِ الْجِهَادِ. He says that تَخْلِيصُ النِّيَّة, rectifying your intention and doing something truly for the sake of Allah Ta'ala and avoiding avoiding it not being for the sake of Allah Ta'ala is harder than even going and doing ijtihad for a very long duration. And then he says, and then Sufyan al-Thawri rahmatullahi alayhi, Sufyan al-Thawri, the alim, right? The alim, he says, مَا عَالَجْتُ شَيْئًا أَشَدَّ عَلَيَّ مِن نِيَّتِي. There is nothing that I had to rectify that was harder than my niyyah. That was harder than my لِأَنَّهَا تَنْقَلِبُ عَلَيْهِ, because it keeps switching on me. And these are the people of Allah Azza wa Jal. They continuously check, they continuously rectify, they're continuously striving to do it for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. We ask Allah Ta'ala for tawfiq and to make us from among the people of sincerity, and we ask Allah Ta'ala to help the people of Gaza and to help the people of Sudan and to help the people all over the ummah who are suffering. And we ask Allah Ta'ala to forgive our sins and to accept our coming here and to make us from among the Muslimin and the Mu'mineen, and ask Allah Ta'ala to make us from the people of guidance and deen and wara'. Sallallahu wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.